Hello everyone, Kaoz here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. More often than not, OSRS updates come to give us one, maybe two major pieces of content every few months. Then, we have smaller updates that give some aspects of the game quality of life, but less often than that, we have massive tweaks and changes to pretty much revolutionize the way we do certain activities in the game. And last week, we saw one of Jagex's biggest proposals coming in something they are calling the Summer Sweep Up. Boys and girls, if this video is helpful, make sure to subscribe with notifications on, drop a fat like for the YouTube algorithm, and join our Discord with the link in the description to play with me and our community, and to know when I go live to experiment at these changes when they hit the game. We have had one update like this in the past where Jagex aimed to rebalance combat, changing a lot of weapons and armor, and a big one called Elemental Weaknesses. The Summer Sweep-Up changes address many things mostly related to PvM content, where they expand on elemental weaknesses, changes to bosses, and other big concerns people have had in recent memory. Before we start, remember that it's likely that nothing we talk about today will be put up to vote, but Jagex is open to suggestions so these changes satisfy the majority of the player base. I hope this video gives you all the information you need to talk about these potential changes on their social media, so with that being said, let's begin. As I do with most of my videos covering big changes coming to the game, we will go from, in my personal opinion, the least to most impactful changes. This is not to say that the first ones are not important, but as we progress, tweaks become increasingly better. We will start from the end of the blog with smaller updates because these are not part of any bigger changes, starting with the Tunnel Sticks of Ralos. It will be given an extra tile of range so you can attack from farther away, potentially making it useful in more places than the Ice Demon and the Maiden. You will be able to hit flying enemies like Aviancies with halberds, and speak of the Ice Demon, Demon-Bane weaponry will be more effective against it. But maybe not best in slot as to not devalue elemental weakness on it, so fire spells continue to be attractive to players. One of the best changes is the potential addition of a visual indicator telling you if you are getting close to a vestige drop coming from a Desert Treasure 2 boss. If you didn't know, you need to roll an invisible drop twice before the vestige drops, so now you will know if you're making any progress. Players with the Grandmaster combat achievements will be able to show their helmet to an NPC in Moral Wreck to be able to do an Inferno task, but only receiving the damage bonuses you would get from doing it on a Slayer task. Slayer experience and a 1 in 75 pet chance after completion will be out of the question. 2-minute thralls could be a master tier reward so Grandmasters don't lose the timer on release. No mention any further buff to Grandmaster Thralls, but honestly, I don't think this is necessary. And finally, Jagex will be fixing attack animations for spells and power staves, so your character moves correctly after casting a spell. When doing so right now, there's a small delay where it looks like your character freezes for a bit, so this will be a thing of the past. Okay, so let's now move up to actual changes, starting with tweaks to NPC Defense. As you know, enemies have certain defense stats to stab, slash, crush, light, standard and heavy ammo, and of course magic. Jagex is looking to quote-unquote exaggerate these defensive stats to make certain weapons better at the places where they should shine, without strictly limiting our options when it comes to weapons. An interesting thing I learned when making this video is that there is a stat called Flat Armor, which is only used for like 8 NPCs at the time of making this video. They plan to roll out this relatively new stat to a select list of NPCs to see how it performs. If you didn't know, positive flat armor of, let's say 2, means that an enemy will take 2 less damage from your final hit. If an enemy has negative 5 flat armor, they will take 5 more damage after your hit has been calculated. This means that enemies will naturally be tankier, which is why they are considering a slight reduction to hit points to enemies who receive a beefy positive flat armor increase. I hope this change is done so future content can benefit from it in the form of new enemies and new weapons, which interact with this mechanic, and make fights deeper and more mechanical. We have more changes to elemental weaknesses coming during the Summer Sweep Up, and if you started playing recently, let me go over this change very quickly. In short, if a monster has, for example, 50% elemental weakness to fire, said monster will take an additional 50% damage when using fire spells. There is a list of monsters with these attributes and we'll be getting more enemies added to these lists and have some of them changed. This includes air weakness to birds, bats, devils, wyverns, ghasts, banshees, shades, zarpus, thermi, and the phantom uspa. Water weakness to Tazars, Vorkath, KBD, Olm, Krill Tusaroth and his minions, Cerberus, and Skutissa. Earth weaknesses to drakes, trolls, the giant mole, Hydra, the Grotus Guardians, and the Kraken. Finally, fire weakness to Bryophyta, the Hespori, the Calphite Queen, Sarachnis, Venenatis, Spindle, Scorpia, Nylos, P3 Versic, oddly enough, and finally Skeletal Wyverns. That list includes a few changes to new weaknesses to monsters, and even has a few quest NPCs weak to elemental spells for lower level players. Remember that most of these changes are for early to mid-level players without powerful weapons to deal more damage, and that it's not very likely for new metas to develop, like bringing air spells for Cerberus or fire spells for Verzik P3. Interesting additions, but I don't really think these will be worth using. From my streams, I do something called account roasting, where people tell me their account and I look them up so I can give them tips. There was this one guy with 1,000, yes, 1,000 Bryophyta KC, so I think he's not really going to like this change. Because with the summer sweep up, we will be able to fight Obor and Bryophyta freely without giant or mossy keys. Oh fuck me, what? The name Autistic 1 actually comes in clutch. Now, when I read that, I had a few concerns like the Hill Giant Club and Bryophyta's essence becoming worthless, or people who have multiple keys being screwed. Well, both of these were addressed, and there will be a chest in the respective layer you can only open after the fight. This means that if you have keys from giants, you won't be able to spam the chest if you have a ton of these in the bank, and the chest will roll the same loot table as either of them, retaining the value on both their uniques. If you're going for combat achievements, it felt awkward being gatekept by giants dropping a key, although it's not really too bad because experienced players could potentially knock all of the CAs out in under 5 KC or something. Definitely a great change with a clever way of avoiding a good amount of items coming into the game thanks to the chest mechanic. Our next change is for the Moons of Peril, as well as changes to an existing ring and a brand new ring coming into the game. Small changes include making the fishing and hunter activities less buggy when getting your supplies, and reducing the number of tornadoes during one of the Blue Moon transition phases, which could get a little overwhelming for players just getting into the activity. In order to aid the players farming this piece of content for the powerful moon sets, we could be getting a new defensive ring coming from one of the most forgotten pieces of content in the entire game, the Deranged Archaeologist. It doesn't have a name yet, but it would provide a plus 20 defense to stab, slash, and crush. Just as chunky as a Ring of Suffering, minus range to magic and prayer bonuses. The Granite Ring is also getting a big buff, increasing its stats both positively and negatively, but the new ring will outperform it even with that extra range defense. The Hueycoatl is only getting minor tweaks to its first phase in order to make the tail hit points clearer, but the main part of the change is for the Dragon Hunter wand. In short, this weapon feels extremely niche, because by the time you are battling powerful dragons like KVD, Vorkath, and Ulm, you probably already have better pieces of gear. The Dragon Hunter wand will have its damage bonus and accuracy against dragons increased. It will be able to auto-cast ancient spells, which are not super useful against dragons, but why not have that added benefit, and increasing the drop rate from 1 in 207 to 1 in 69. Nice. Additionally, the Hueycoatl hide will drop at a rate of 1 in 30 instead of 1 in 35, and will guarantee 3 pieces of hide whenever you get them. Finally, making the Hueycoatl hide armor will have its crafting level lowered, so you can make it earlier. Some much needed changes are coming for Duke Sucellus, and will be able to prepare 3 kills worth of potions in one go. At high enough herblore and farming level so you only need 2 mushrooms to make 12 ingredients, and then mine 12 salts for a single potion, it means that the cap will now be increased to 36. You will be able to keep this in your inventory so your next 2 kills are much faster, and won't have to run around too much. You might be wondering, okay, is this going to lead to higher kills per hour? And the answer is, maybe? Because kills will naturally be faster, Duke will see a slight increase in hit points to make up for the lack of preparation phase. Even if it takes the same amount to kill 3 before and after the nerf, it will be a much needed change because preparing those potions is an absolute snooze fest. If you have done your fair share of Cerberus in the past, I can guarantee at least 2 things come to mind that make you rage more than you should. Thankfully, Jagex has not forgotten about the big red puppy, and we are getting much needed changes that will potentially extend your trips. The 2 things I mentioned before are that 1, the lava pool will be easier to react to, and it will only damage you if you are stepping on top of it. Currently, if you get unlucky, and as soon as you see this mechanic activating, it could lay a pool of lava directly under or near you, and have literally no time to avoid the damage. The second one is that the Ward of Arceus spell will be effective against the spirits, and if it's active during this mechanic, prayer drain will be reduced by 30%. Right now, if you pray against them correctly, they drain 30 prayer, and 15 if you're wearing a Spectral Spirit Shield. After the change, these numbers will go down to 21 and 10 or 11 respectively, depending on how damage is being rounded up or down. Something I've been wanting ever since I was able to do Cerberus was either Keymaster Teleport dropping in higher amounts, more often, or just make them tradable because it made 0 sense for them to be the only non-tradable teleport scroll in the game. Our prayers have been answered, and the drop will be more common, as well as them being able to be traded in the Grand Exchange. Out of all of the changes on this list, I'm more excited to try this one out than pretty much any other of the solo bosses. I say solo because we have big changes coming to next. Excuse my lack of knowledge like the other bosses here because I'm not a fan of this boss in masses or in small teams, but I'll do my best to explain. Jagex starts this part of the blog stating that a part of the frustration coming from Nex is that it's basically a brew chugging simulator because of tons of chip damage, unpredictable attack patterns, and not many chances to heal without losing DPS. These changes will allow us to deal reduced damage past our phase transitions, so we're not hit with an effect that nullifies damage. This is mostly for small teams, since masses get through the fight so quickly that it will barely make a difference in the time it takes to kill Nex. Jagex will change some of the behaviors during downtime so we actually have some time to heal up without stopping the DPS, and a pretty good change coming is that we will be able to heal off the Blood Reavers when Nex is on the Blood phase. Also during other phases, when Nex uses a melee attack, she will guarantee 2 more melee hits so you can properly protect against damage. Finally, the last phase will see a change in her magic attacks to reduce damage in case you change your prayers a tad bit too late. As most of you know, a lot of NPCs in RuneScape, Nex included, calculate damage as their animations begin. If you're praying correctly, or not praying at all, activating magic pray just before the projectile reaches you will mitigate a bit of damage. That's pretty much it for the changes to Nex, which will definitely make the feel of smaller team encounters a lot better, and I'll be trying them out on stream when these make it into the game. The Phosani's Nightmare section is not as big as Nex, but these changes are honestly massive, and I have done more Phosani than I have done Nex, so I'm pretty excited for these changes since Phosani's Nightmare is a genuinely fun fight, but it takes a bit too long and 1 or 2 mistakes could be the end for you. Jagex is looking to remove an entire phase from this fight. Currently, phases 1, 2, and 3 are identical, and then the 4th phase, which is the same but with a prayer deactivation mechanic, and attacking with melee more commonly. Followed by the Enrage phase, which is constant damage and sleepwalkers. After this change, we will only have P1, P2, P3 with the activation, and the Enrage phase. Jagex mentions that drop rates will not be changed, and most importantly, I don't see anything about increasing HP for this fight. This means that this will be a straight up increase in kills per hour, no strings attached, and all that's left is to talk about is the speedrun times for the combat achievements. My current PB is around 6 minutes and 30 seconds with max gear, and I'm guessing that with good RNG and mechanics, the fight could potentially take under 6 minutes, and even under 5 minutes for cracked gamers. I honestly don't mind the lack of a potential change to the drop table, and especially for Iron players who could be stuck here for several hundred KC. If this is the case for your account, I would stop the Nightmare grind until these changes go live, and get more KC per hour looking for those uniques. The second most impactful change in my personal opinion is a rebalance to the drop tables from multiple creatures, specifically ones that drop resources coming into the game at lightning speed. If you watch my skilling and money making videos, anytime I talk about mining, fishing, and or woodcutting, I always say that they have lost a ton of value over the years because a ton of new monsters drop items like ore, raw fish, and logs or planks. However, this could be the start of Jagex toning this down just a little bit. I encourage you to check out the blog on their website so you can take a look at the spreadsheet they made, and some potential changes to monsters and the bosses that drop raw or cooked fish, gems, runes, herbs, and seeds. Notably, ore is missing from this, which is a little weird, but maybe they don't plan on touching those quite yet. In short, a lot of bosses and monsters that drop these resources will have their numbers fixed, and in the case of the Tombs of Amascut for example, seeds will be less common. One of the biggest examples is the fact that before TOA, Torstal seeds were well over 50k, and thanks to the third raid as well as the Phantom Uspa, a single Torstal seed goes for around 6.5 kgp, which is a massive drop over the years. Not only are we getting some items in smaller quantities from these sources, but other bosses and monsters will drop some of these items in larger quantities like the Thermi dropping raw sharks, Hellhounds dropping death runes, and the Hueycoatl dropping Waska seeds. Something you might notice is that Zulrah will have a chance to drop a new item called the Shark Chum. This will basically work like the diabolic worms, giving sharks a better catch rate. This is just something experimental they are doing, and not adding something like this for more supplies for the following reason. Directly from the blog they say this: we don't ever want to get to a point of players feeling like it's not worth doing X skill without Y skill enhancer from Z boss. Despite the fact that I do agree with this point of view, I think it would have been a cool idea adding some of these items to, for example, magic logs and the runite ore. Either remove these from some or all bosses that drop them in high quantities, give them a new item to enhance gathering skills, and see how it goes from there. I think Shark Chum will give Jagex a good idea of how this will go, but adding one, maybe two more of these would have been pretty cool. As a little side note, there's something like this in RuneScape 3 called Stone Spirits. When mining, let's say, a Runite rock, if you have a Runite Stone Spirit in your inventory, successfully mining the rock will give you 2 or and consume a spirit. I don't remember if they have more of these for other skills, but nice inspiration taken from the game, and the diabolic worms that work with anglerfish. The last thing I'll mention about this topic is that they are absolutely nuking resources from Soul Wars, since it's a very popular place for bots, and from RuneFest 2025's presentation, Mod Rice shows how most of Blood runes come from Soul Wars, which I bet is also the case for most, if not all, items coming from supply crates. I just really hope this doesn't apply for leagues, because where the hell am I going to get my pure essence from if it's not there? The Tombs of Amascut is the PVM equivalent to how much I love runecrafting, except for when I get another pet without having my Masori body. How is my account so cursed at this fucking place, bro? Don't give me another pet, thank you. I'm fucking quitting TOA. But the biggest changes in this blog are for the best raid in old school RuneScape. I will go over them a little quicker because we have a lot to cover, and I will talk about them in order in which I normally run TOA. Baba's Puzzle Room will see monkey waves reduced by 2, and the Venom and Shaman baboons will always take maximum damage from ranged weapons. Their HP will go up to compensate, but this is a massive change to make the worst room if the best raid in the game less AIDS. I just wonder if they're removing the first 2, the last 2, or 2 random ones in between. Baba herself is receiving the most meaningful changes. At higher invocations, I would say at 400 or above, it is almost mandatory to do Red X, especially if you're going on a solo run, to avoid being ass blasted even through prayer. When these changes go live, Protection Melee will block 100% of Baba's damage, except for when you have invocations that modify your prayers. Additionally, rocks thrown at you will deal 0 damage if you successfully step next to something that absorbs it, like rocks on the ground or sarcophagi. Lastly, baboons coming from the fight will be killed in 1 hit, but will leave more bananas on the ground if you have the invocation active to make up for a quick kill. I would have preferred giving them the same behavior as the Puzzle Room monkeys, where you deal your max hit, but have to deal with only 1 per player. Kefri Puzzle doesn't change, so we jump straight into the fight, and this one won't take too long either. Magic defense on the melee Scarab will be reduced to hopefully kill it faster, Scarabs will no longer scale their defense according to the level of the raid, and the Mage Scarab will be moving around after 3 hits even if you deal 0 damage. This will make it so its super unlucky players get to dodge the mage attack if they don't land 3 successful hits, or deal 40 damage in one of those. Akka puzzle changes are nothing huge, and the obelisk will have its HP slightly reduced. A big update for Akka is coming, and correctly praying against Akka's attack will deal even less damage. The Stay Vigilant invocation will be reworked, and this is how it's gonna work. Special attacks will be used more often, and whenever Akka does a special attack, he will swap attack styles. Also, whenever this happens, he will do the same predictable pattern rather than doing it randomly. Changes besides Stay Vigilant include him only praying against the style he is using, so only 1 protection at a time. Stats draining only affects combat skills, specials happen every 7 attacks instead of 6, and then the number of orbs in the enrage phase will be reduced. Something that made me laugh was that Jagex refuses to use the colloquial term for Akka's enrage phase, and they had this funny bit in the blog. Finally, for the demi-bosses, the Zebak puzzle room will be changed to water needed for the tree, scaling linearly with the number of players. This is to give newcomers a better time in case they mess up, and they don't have to stand in the middle freezing crocs. As for the Zebak fight itself, the only change is that the waves will deal 30% more damage if they hit you, but will no longer knock you back. Maybe swimming will be a thing of the past. For the Wardens, skull bombs during P2 will no longer land under the active Warden or the Obelisk. And for things inside the Tombs of Amascut but not a puzzle or a boss, we will get a functioning deposit box near the Helpful Spirit, any drained stats will be restored at the end of a boss fight, and then the Smelling Salts will reapply their effect 1 final time as they are running out. The final change will be for loot. I don't have a lot of information for this one because Jagex doesn't even know what to do about it yet, and we are waiting for community feedback to come up with something juicy. In short, they want to make drops more meaningful, since a lot of powerful items like the Osmundum's Fang and the Lightbearer have been dirt cheap for a while. There will be conversations about how players would want to welcome these changes, in the form of, for example, smaller chances at a purple at the end of a raid at any invocation level, or even a small rebalance to how getting a purple works in the Tombs of Amascut. One thing is certain though, Jagex is not happy with the Fang at the 10 mil mark, and would like to see this great weapon recover some of its value. If you have any idea what these changes could be, leave a comment down below, or join the discussion on Discord, Reddit, or Twitter. So Scapers of all ages, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and you learned all about the tweaks potentially coming soon. If you did, tell me what your favorite change of this video is and why, and if you include the term RSN and your username in your comment, you'll be entered in our weekly bond giveaway, for which we will pick a winner on Friday's stream. I want to give a massive thank you to all the people you see on screen for further supporting the channel with a monetary subscription. All your contributions help both my family and a local animal shelter we donate to every month. If you want to be a part of that, click the join button below to see all of the cool perks and the benefits you can get from your monthly fee, in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord. In the next one, we will have a for fun video talking about some of the failed polls we have had in old school RuneScape since the threshold was changed to 70%. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and I will see you then. Peace.